You know I'm right. Nick Durst here with Joe Calabrese. And Joe, our guest today, he's a very busy man these days. He's plugged in with all the happenings in the offseason, particularly the New York Mets.
Yeah, and it's been an uneventful offseason so far for the Mets. So we'll get to talk to him, and he'll get to describe a little more in detail about why that situation is ultimately playing out how it is right now. But we're excited to have him on. He's a Cali kid, somebody who's used to a lot better weather than what we're dealing with right now. And like you said, he's the Mets beat writer right now, currently for the record for NorthJersey.com. And we're very excited that he's taken some time and found some time here to share with us today. So Justin Toscano, welcome to the show. How you doing today, bud?
Good. Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, sorry it took me a while to get on, but it's good to be with you guys.
Oh, we're excited to have you on. Before we get into a bit of your career here, how are you approaching this off season as a writer, considering that probably the bulk of your articles are going to be about labor disputes and whatnot, once maybe the Mets finally hire somebody here?
Right. Yeah, that's the tough part about it. I think you kind of don't, for me, I guess this is unprecedented. Because I wasn't here for the last labor strike. I wasn't even alive for, So yeah, to me, it's almost about spinning it forward, kind of what it means for the team, what it means for baseball, stuff like that. You cover little ins and outs of what it could mean for the specific team you're covering, the players. But yeah, it's gonna be weird because I feel like this has been already a kind of a weird offseason. And we haven't even reached the labor dispute part of it. And so so I feel like it's tough to know how all that's going to play out without being in the rooms of those people, figuring it all out. But yeah, it's kind of like you approach it like as it comes, but you kind of know that it's coming, if that makes sense.
Right. No doubt about it. So I want to hear a little bit about your childhood growing up. I think we know the answer, but what was your favorite baseball team and player, and how did you really think to yourself and decide maybe I could make a living here somehow in the sports world in journalism?
Yeah. So growing up, my favorite team was the Padres, and then my favorite player was Tony Gwynn. And yeah, I think I always loved sports. Like I was always that kid watching Sports Center before school because it was like, let's see. Yeah, because it was a 7 a.m. edition, back in California. So it already like aired here or whatever. Yes, I think, so it was a 7 a.m. one, and I'd always watch that before school. So I was a typical sports kid, sports nut, watched all the sports on the weekends, weekdays, whatever. But I think once I realized that I could do something, I think I read like the paper and I saw people on TV, so I kind of had an idea of what it was, but yeah, I didn't really know what the job actually entailed until college. But I remember going to college for it. I just thought it'd be sweet. Yeah, I'd always just thought like that's what I wanted to do. Yeah, it was a foregone conclusion. I never really considered anything else, which might be naive or weird. Just always knew I was going for sports journalism. And so, I remember taking a Petco Park tour my sophomore year of high school for like a photography class we had. We took one of those like ballpark tours. And I remember they took us up to the press box. And at the time, it was like you saw the view, you saw the workspace up there. And then they told us like everybody after like the fifth inning gets like free hot dogs and stuff. And so I thought that was pretty sweet. Like, why wouldn't you want to, be in an environment like that every day? But just more like being there and the thought of something like that being your office. Now, obviously, knowing a little bit more about it, the job is very difficult. And it's not just, eating food and watching games. But yeah, no, I'm very grateful to be here. But yeah, that's kind of how I knew. I think it was like, I don't even remember deciding on sports journalism. I think it was just like a foregone conclusion that, I just wanted to always be around sports. And that's just what I wanted to do. It was like the cliche, I wasn't good enough to make it pro. So, it was the way I could stay around sports. And so I found that.
So why ASU? How'd you decide on Arizona State University, and your thoughts on the revitalized football program right now with Herm Edwards doing some great things?
Right. Yeah. So I think they just had a lot of opportunities. So I remember the big draw for me was that you could go in immediately as a freshman and do a lot and get involved in a lot, whereas a lot of other journalism schools, it seemed like kids only got to do stuff like junior and senior years. And then I remember the major pro sports being there, like Diamondbacks, Suns, Cardinals, Coyotes, all that stuff. Was really enticing because we could cover some of that stuff. So getting to be around that atmosphere was enticing. But I remember like my mom made me apply. Like I didn't even want to apply to ASU just because I was just thought I would never go there. But then when I applied, got in, I took like a tour there that next spring, like a couple months before I graduated high school. And yeah, and I loved it. I loved the atmosphere. How do I say, like it was more aligned, like the kids there were more aligned with people I would hang out with than like a Northwestern per se. Like I visited Northwestern, I remember like in high school, and like I just didn't like the atmosphere there. It was very like, yeah, I don't know. It was just it wasn't as fun as I would have liked it to be. Like not saying like I'm a huge partier, so it was just like the ASU was a lot more laid back and I thought that was super cool. So it was like baby California almost. So it was like I was getting to go away from home, but it was a little bit, like what I had experienced. Yeah, and so I mean, I thought this year was going to be the year for ASU football, but then you have the recruiting violations or the allegations right now of recruiting violations, the NCAA investigation. Team already has 3 losses. Things are going off the rails. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what they do, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Herm isn't there next year. I don't know if I don't think he's earned another year, to be completely honest. Like I think they're recruiting better than they ever have, which is very encouraging, but the team is undisciplined. Like last week was just a lack of focus and effort against Washington State. Yeah, so I'm very torn because I really do think that Herm has done some good things in terms of getting assistants who can really recruit the snot out of, places they're trying to recruit, like especially California. So yeah, they're more talented than they maybe have ever been. But the fact that it's still going to be a 3-loss, 4-loss, even 5-loss season, like that's unacceptable. I mean, he hasn't really turned it around yet. And yeah, I thought he was doing some great things, but it's been fairly disappointing to be completely honest. They should be able to shoot higher than mediocrity. Yeah, I don't think mediocrity is okay, and it's been what, like 4 or 5 years at this point. I'm trying to think. Yeah, so so this being his 4th year, I mean, it's tough to justify giving him more time, especially because recruiting is going to drop, with the NCAA investigation, considering, depending on what happens there. So it's it's not a good time, but at least they're a lot better than their rivals who haven't won a game, I think in like 19, I think it's like a 19 game losing streak or something like that. So as long as it never gets that bad, I'm fine.
I think you got to let everything play out, and I think there's some value in keeping him around because we're at the point where a lot of NCAA teams are going to consolidate, and we know that conferences are going to merge, and slowly but surely we're going to get the whole, just there's going to be 4 power conferences. We all know it's coming. So I wanted to ask, briefly touched on it. You love the atmosphere, but you weren't a party animal. I want that on the record.
Yeah, no, definitely never partied. Yeah, spent my Friday and Saturday nights studying up for next week's exams. Yeah,
and
definitely.
then working on getting those internships, huh?
Right, exactly. Yeah, just working on stuff. Yeah, definitely never partied, never touched alcohol in my life there. Yeah, never did any of that stuff. Crazy. I know it's tough to believe, but it was
No,
yeah,
I totally believe you.
I was just too focused on, all the studying that I had to do and maybe some Saturday night bingo over at the senior center or something like that. But yeah, no party, no partying at all.
My grandma
Well,
used
it
to
worked
be a
out.
bingo gal. It
Right.
all worked out.
1 year later, he's in a prime job. So get to that.
Yeah, so you had internships for the San Diego Union Tribune, which is pretty cool. So Arizona State, for our listeners, is actually one of the best schools in the country for communications, like you mentioned at the top. So A lot of opportunities available to you. Doesn't have to necessarily be in like that greater immediate Phoenix area with those teams there. Obviously, you have other major cities by you. You have Vegas to the north. You can go back out west. You know, LA is still out there. San Diego's still out there. You're from San Diego. So you had the internships with the San Diego Union Tribune. So what were you doing on campus before that happened, and how did those come about for you?
Yeah, so I interned with the San Diego Union Tribune after my freshman year, and then I interned with the Arizona Republic my sophomore year, and then with other places, and then MLB.com, my senior year, covering the D-backs. So how those came about, before the first one, I was just, I was working with the school paper. I don't even think they had a job in sports. Yeah, they didn't have a job in sports my freshman year there, my first semester. So I just wrote news for that first semester. And I mean, it sucked, but it taught me a lot. And it was cool to get that down, at least get a foot in the door. So then my second semester, I was like the main guy on like swim and dive, that beat. And then I was backing up baseball, which actually that was a good, it was a good beat for a freshman. And so I was lucky to do that. And so I got that internship because I had known somebody there from like an internship I did there in high school for like a month. It was like a month long like class thing. And so I used mine to do like an internship there. And wrote one story or something like that. But so that was a little more fleshed out. And then, so then through my sophomore year, I did, covered hockey. So I covered like actually the very first ASU hockey season, like the very first like D1 hockey season there. I covered part of that because then like when the semester flipped, I got, switched to baseball because I'd rather be on baseball. So I did baseball. And then my junior and senior years, I did football, basketball, baseball. And so, so that was pretty sweet. I feel like I did a lot there, and it was cool to cover the college stuff because I got a good sense of, I feel like it gave me a good sense of what I would want to do in the future, whether it be like just because covering college sports is so much different than covering pro sports. And there are different things you have to worry about in terms of like access or, the schedules, things like that. So it gave me a good look at that stuff. Plus it helped me land internships and, I worked at like Sports 360 AZ, which is a company started by my one of my professors there, who's a mentor in the industry, and that taught me a lot. And he let me cover a lot of stuff. And then that MLB.com internship was like, it was great because I basically got to do the job I'm doing now, but there was somebody like helping me because I was helping the main beat guy there. So it was like I was getting to learn, and I feel like all that stuff
Yeah,
during
it's
that
more
stuff.
like an apprenticeship.
Right, yeah,
Because
exactly.
I used to work for MLB.com, and although I didn't work for editorial, I worked in the video side of things. I have somebody who I went to high school with who is one of their main beat writers now. His name is Joe Trezza. But I understand how the structure there works, and I think it's much more helpful than most places. So I think you got very fortunate there.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, it's a shame because I was the last class to get to do that because then they shut down that internship like right after that year, which I think is really a shame because it's I think in terms of like beat writing or being in the actual, like there's not a better internship than that because they literally put you on the job. And so like I remember like when they wouldn't send, because MLB.com doesn't send their visiting guys everywhere. And so like when they wouldn't send somebody, like, when the Astros came to Phoenix, like I was in the Astros clubhouse. So like that was of course like frightening as like a 22, like I'd never done, much like when you're covering a team you don't even know and like faces you've never seen, like hell, like I mean, not many of the D-backs even knew me because it was like you were an intern. So it was like you're just there for the season. So it's like you were, it's not like you're one of the full timers, but like it was just such great experience to be able to be in those environments. And I mean, like, I credit that internship with like giving me all of them, but that one like gave me a lot. I just, I'm always thankful to Bill Hill who did the hiring for that. When he was still at MLB.com. And I'm always, just super grateful for all he's done to help me out. Because I wouldn't be where I am without any of those, but without that one specifically. But I think they all came about by doing stuff during school. Like I don't think you can just get the internships. I think everybody like works throughout school to get the internships.
Yeah. How devastated were you your junior year when your Chargers leave San Diego to go to LA? And as a San Diegoan and your fellow people from San Diego, are you guys still in disbelief that the Chargers are now in Los Angeles?
Yeah, I remember that sucked, man. Like I remember, yeah, that was a bad day. I think it happened. I think it officially happened sometime in January where like it was official that it was like going to happen. But I know it was like I remember leading up to it, it was like weird because that 16 season, you kind of just knew it was like their last year there. And so yeah, it was sad. I remember like, yeah, I mean, we're still salty, but you actually do have a lot of San Diegans who root for the Chargers, even though they just, moved to LA. I personally can't because I don't like. I mean, it's like a team leaves your city. It's like your girlfriend leaving you for some other guy, and you still like support. You know what I mean? Like I just feel like it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I just feel like it's just kind of, which is weird because I grew up because my grandparents lived in Orange County, so I grew up a Lakers fan just because that was just like the closest team to me. And it was like during the Kobe and the Shaq day, Kobe and Shaq days. So I guess some people think it's weird that I don't root for the LA Chargers, but I don't. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm not a
Are
big.
you did you adopt Joe's team, the Jets?
Oh God, are you kidding me? I mean, I don't think I could. That would be more heartache than the Chargers gave me every week. It's nice because like I don't like, yeah, being in the industry, like I'm not as much of a fan as I used to like be like growing up, just because it like takes you out of it. You've got to be objective. But like, yeah, I remember some of those Charger games, man. Like when I was in high school and college, like
How did LaDainian Tomlinson and Philip Rivers not win a Super Bowl? I mean, they're the
I
best team for
yeah,
years.
I know, man. And I think LT is still my favorite athlete of all time. And I don't even know. Or like the year in 2010 when they had the number one offense and the number one defense and still missed the playoffs. Like I don't even know. Like I'm pretty sure there was just something like buried under Qualcomm Stadium, and there was like a curse or something like that. Like I don't even like I remember trying to think one year, I think it was like 2012 or 2013. They blew that 17-point lead against the Texans at home on Monday Night Football to begin the year. And then there was like the Ray Rice 4th and 29. And there was just like, you could just go down the list of like these blown leads and these like, it was just, yeah, it was crazy. So now I guess it's like, I just watch the NFL as like a football fan, but yeah, my Sundays are a lot less stressful than they were, at any point in my life growing up. But it was, I don't want to make it sound like that, like just be cynical. Like it was a lot of fun, rooting for them like growing up because they had some really fun teams. And even if they ended in heartache, it was there were some really likable guys on those teams.
Yeah, Philip Rivers is one of the all-time great Chargers, I guess you'd say. So it's a shame he never at least got to Super Bowl.
Oh
So
yeah. No, that one hurt for him, especially because they got pretty close in Buffalo. I think they were playing last year. It was like they gave him a better game than I thought they would. And yeah, yeah, it hurts for him. And like, I remember it hurt when LT, left, but it was like almost like you want guys like that to be able to chase winning too. And
Yeah, it hurt the AFC Championship game. The Jets, the second one that they played against the Steelers, because that team was better than the first team from the year before. And LT was on that team, and a lot of people at the time here really wanted him to get to the Super Bowl, and he was pretty good here. And I'm with you. Everybody here always used to have that San Diego blue powder jersey. I
everybody
had
had an
it. My
LT
friends
jersey
had
in
it.
high school.
Yeah,
Joe,
it was
you
one of
probably
the. It was
had
just
one.
one of those. I did.
Yeah, iconic
he,
player.
he was yeah, he was like the premier athlete of that generation. Yeah, those powder blue jerseys, man. Like I
They're
still
still
don't
sweet.
think, yeah, I still don't think there's like a better uniform in sports. Like even though I just root, it's easier. Like I remember like when the Chargers first moved, I just root for them to lose every single week. But that's like hard when Philip Rivers still plays for the team. You know what I mean? And like Antonio Gates still played for the team, and like Keenan Allen he still plays for the team. But yeah, now it's weird because there's a bunch of these faces that just weren't there when they moved. And it's just like new blood there, new coach. Yeah, they're heading in the right direction though. I really like Staley. And Herbert, I mean, I'd watched him. I was in the Pac-12. And he's better than I ever thought he would be. Like I didn't think he was bad in college. I just didn't think he'd be this good of an NFL quarterback.
Herbert's legit. All right, back to you here. I'm curious to hear how you pretty fortunate, I would say, out of college, basically right away you get your first job, the Manhattan Mercury, Manhattan, Kansas. How did that come about, and how many places did you apply for and send your articles to before getting that opportunity?
Yeah. I remember I was doing the MLB.com internship at the time, and one of my mentors told me to get a job like the one I have now, probably gonna need some full-time experience first. So yeah, I was only there for 8 months, but it was cool. And I remember like, yeah, so I'm trying to think of who I sent to, like of the jobs that were actually realistic for me to get out of college that I applied to one, two, yeah, probably like five or six maybe, which actually isn't that many compared to a lot of people. Like, so I actually felt fortunate because I feel like I got that job pretty quickly out of college. And yeah, so I remember, yeah, sometimes when you like wouldn't hear back from people because yeah, it was just like crazy because you wonder if you're ever gonna get a job, even though you know that's like unrealistic. Like I knew I'd positioned myself pretty well, but yeah, I think I applied five, six, seven places before that. And this was actually that was the best first job I'd applied to. So yes, I was lucky to get into. Yeah, it was a really fun time. I still talk to some of the people from there, and they're still like good friends of mine. And so yeah, it was a really fun time. And I remember when it felt weird because I was only there for 8 months. So when I got this job, I was actually like less than a year out of college still. Like I hadn't graduated, like I was maybe like 10 months out of college when I got this job. So yeah, it's still that year felt really long because it was so much happened.
How did you get this job here? Obviously, your dream job on a beat for MLB team. Did you hear from people, or did you see a posting online? And you came into the season like a month in. So was that a difficult adjustment for you? Obviously, you weren't there with spring training. I'm guessing you were the youngest guy on the beat. Maybe you're still the youngest person on the beat. So how did you acclimate yourself with the organization to make those relationships in order to help your writing?
Yeah, I think yeah, so I heard about this job through somebody I'd worked at MLB.com with, Jesse Sanchez, and he just like sent me, sent me their way. Which is really nice of me. I still owe like a lot. I feel like I owe everything to him for that. Because I don't think I ever would have heard about it. Because it was posted. It just like I wouldn't have seen it, I don't think. But yeah, so that happened. I remember, getting there in the middle of the season was like hard because you don't like, I don't think when you first step into a job like this, I don't think I understood what was like, I don't understand. I don't understand it. Like I didn't understand it like I do now. And so I think you're just trying to develop relationships and the best you can, or like the best you know how, or like write the best things you can. So for me, like I tried to just like make clubhouse inroads. And I did with a couple guys through stories I wrote or through things I did. And I think they got to see that I was more of like, I like to humanize my subjects a little bit. I just think like in sports journalism, there's too much of like the X's and O. Like there's a place for that, but there's too much like we're not covering robots. And I always try to like factor that in when I'm doing the job. And I think like some guys saw that, or at least they told me they saw that, and like and appreciated that. I just think that was kind of how I tried to build relationships. But in terms of like talking to people around the team, it's just like that stuff like comes with time. I feel like it's like you learn the best ways to do those things. So it's like even now I'm still learning, but like I think I think it was tough because the season like flew after I got on, and then that was the year like Mickey yelled at the reporter, like they had, I feel like they had, like an awful bullpen. So it was like just like so many blown leads and like blown games. And then they had like
Diaz.
yeah, exactly. And then they had the second half run, but they still finished like a few games, out of playoff contention. So there was so much that happened there that I feel like it flew. But it was really hard not to come in during spring training because ideally, like the funny thing was like this season was my first full season on the beat, because then like last year I felt like I was getting my footing and then everything got shut down during COVID. So I was at spring training um and so that was like a short season. So this was actually like my first full season, like actual just like a full season from spring training to end, to game 162. So I always think like it's crazy what I think I could do or the improvements I think I could make if I got another one of these. So it's funny because I've been here for like 3 seasons technically, but it still felt like this was my first season because it's like everything's getting like disrupted, and it's pretty annoying, but you just roll with the punches. It's still fun.
And how have you adapted to Mets Twitter?
Oh God. let me just take a moment to say that it's lovely, and I appreciate every single person who's tweeted anything about the Mets at me. No, yeah, I think look, I think the way I approach it is you would rather cover a team, you'd rather have anger and frustration than apathy. So people caring is better than people not caring, but I do, yeah, I do think some of the stuff on there is ridiculous. As I think like a lot of Mets fans think that. Like I think the ridiculous side of Mets Twitter like is a very vocal minority, is what I've learned. Like most people are like actually just like fans and like rational, like human beings. But yeah, I think there's a lot of noise on Mets Twitter that I just think it like sometimes the frustrating isn't the right word because it doesn't like frustrate. Like, I mean, I don't care. It's the sad part about it is that it seems like some people just wake up wanting to be pissed off about something. And I just like, it's really sad because like, I don't know how you wake up like next to your wife or like go downstairs to see your kids, whatever it may be. And like, maybe these people aren't in these same situations. I don't know. But like, I don't know how you do that. Like, and I mean, I'm, like, so I don't have kids or like a wife. So I don't get that whole thing. But I feel like I don't know how you wake up on a given day and just like want to be pissed off about something. Like it's okay. Like it's okay to go outside and take a walk, or it's okay to go work out. Like it's okay to like log off. Like if your job doesn't require Twitter, like it's okay to like, and I just like, it's really sad to me because I hope, obviously everybody can use social media in the ways they want, but I just hope like people are taking care of themselves. Cause it's like some of these people seem so unhappy on Mets Twitter. And it's just like, it's just I hate to say it like because I know Pete Alonso just got scorched for this, but it literally is like just a game. Like I know people want to win, but it's like we all follow sports because it's like fun. Like I do what I do because it's fun. Like I'm not.
Justin, just wait until you post the first spring training game lineup and Robinson Cano is batting cleanup. You're gonna hear it.
I'm not even. It's like, yeah, I can't even think of all the ridiculous things that have happened because there have just been too many. But I feel genuine sadness. Like I hope those people that are kind of miserable on Mets Twitter actually are very happy in their lives. Cause I would feel bad for them if they weren't, because I think they're like, yeah, I just want people to be happy. And I feel like, I feel like that's what I think about Mets Twitter. But like I said, anger and all that stuff is always better than apathy. So as long as they, care, I mean, that's, they're always going to have a passionate fan base. And I think the Mets understand that. And I think they like that. Because it's not that way
Right.
for all teams, and I do get that. And so it's like both ends of the spectrum, right? Like when you're losing, they hate you. When you're winning, it's like if they won a title here, I mean, they'd be, these people would like remember them as heroes forever. So that's just the way it is. Like it's like, yeah. And so you're whether you're the best guy on the roster, the 26th man. And so I think Mets Twitter. Yeah, it's just a lovely place. I think a lot of good stuff goes on there.
I think it's just social media in general these days. But while we're on the topic of Twitter, so this is something that Nick and I usually ask a lot of the other writers that we've had on, and naturally those guys are much older than we are, right? So we have kind of grown up with this idea that if you have something, piece of news, information, or a scoop that nobody else has, one of the very first things that you want to do is you want to get it out there on your own. You want to tweet it out. You want the recognition for it. And then obviously with the way the baseball writer community is, you put something out there, everybody else is going to follow you. We're going to credit you. So for somebody who is, closer to our age, and I don't think really has as much conflict and kind of feeling comfortable getting stuff out there like immediately.
Right.
How do you still balance out the ratio here between getting the takeout or the piece of news or information out on your own first, on your social handles, on your Twitter platform, versus saving that info for something that you want to write for northjersey.com and stuff that your editors are kind of saying like, no, we want you to write about this first?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that's I think that's that's a really good question. What I do personally is like, if it's like, for example, I think I like this, I learned like if I learned like Luis Guillorme like this was just a small example from last year. If I learned Luis Guillorme is going to come off the IL, probably just like throw that one out there, because like eventually, like in a few hours, if it's not like a Jacob deGrom type, like in a few hours, it's like we're going to talk to the manager about that anyways, and that's going to be like, that might be like a small note in that story, because it's like other things might happen that day. So I think that's fine to put out there, but I very much do value like people actually reading. And so like, for example, when I did reporting for like a story last week on like where the executive search stood, a lot of the nuggets that I had learned for that ended up putting in there, I just like I don't think I even tweeted that day. I think the first thing I tweeted was like that story the next morning. And because I don't think like, I think it really cheapens the work, because I don't want, and some people can do that. Like some of the national guys who don't write as much or something like that. Yeah, they can throw everything out there. Even like they're like bloggers with sources. And they'll just throw stuff out there. And I get that, because it's like, if you're not really gonna like write anything and you're just, your sole purpose is just to tweet it, that's fine. But I think for reporters, like for me personally, depending on how big like the scoop is, I guess, or like how big the story could be. Like if it's a huge story, then like, yeah, like I'll tweet it out. If it's a huge scoop or something, I would do that. But it's like, if it's something like nuggets of reporting and things like that, that I guess still would be scoops, like I probably will just like tweet out the story, because it's like, you don't want people to assume, like you don't want them to not read, just like you're kind of giving stuff away for free. And I think that's like, it goes with another thing in our industry. Like the biggest mistake anybody ever made was putting stuff on the internet like for free. And so now people think they shouldn't have to pay for news, stuff like that. So what I think is like, it's almost like, yeah, I do value, like, it's almost like scoops and stuff. I've talked to people about this. That stuff's like for your Twitter audience, I feel like. So I guess if you satisfy people like that, or like you want to get your name out there, that's fine. But like at the end of the day, I think like the quality stuff is like actually like the writing it or whatever. And so like, for me, I try to not give out a ton of stuff for free. That doesn't mean I don't like let people know what's going on. I just don't like, for that story, it's like, I'm not gonna have a 10 tweet thread about nuggets I learned, like, because that just cheapens like the work, I feel like.
All right, now probably the most important question we're going to ask you. You mentioned hot dogs earlier. We always ask all of our guests who work in sports at games, what's your routine? You know, what are you eating pregame? What are you snacking on during the game? Who's the most notorious of your fellow beat writers who is well known for taking advantage of the food? And which ballparks do you think have the best selection for the media?
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so my routine is usually I'll show up like, yeah, whenever, I guess before the clubhouse opens, or when the clubhouse was open, or before the Zoom started, or field access, whatever era we're in. I'll show up before that, do the work. After I finish my pregame, I'll get some food. So usually that's in the media dining portion. Like at Citi Field, I would usually stick to the media dining portion. And I'm operating with a gluten allergy, so I take that into account. But so at Citi Field, I'd like, the media dining was pretty good there. So I think that was one of the better ones that we went to, if not the best. And so I usually stick to that there. But if I'm on the road, like Atlanta, the media dining is just pretty like non-existent. And for most of this season, that might have just been the COVID year. It wasn't very great in 2019, and I couldn't have this stuff, so I try to find something like gluten-free out in the concourse there. But I'm trying to think of the best places I've gone to like for the food. Philly is always really good, yeah, because Philly's got a lot of good stuff in the media dining and on the concourse. Philly's got a ton of good stuff. I remember thinking Minnesota had some good stuff when we went there for like interleague in 2019. Yeah, I remember that one had some good stuff. Dodger Stadium's got some good food. I mean, I've been to Petco as a fan, but like that's got some good food. But yeah, I think whoever is notorious, man, DC is actually pretty good too, because I just, if there's not something I want, I'll just walk out to the Chipotle that's like across the street. Speaking of which, I just think yeah, I don't know if anybody's like a huge foodie like on our beat, but I think like Healy and Chipotle is yeah, I think that would probably be the one I go to. But I had Chipotle a lot too, so I can't even really like talk smack about that. But yeah, I think yeah, I remember last year when all the concessions were closed and stuff, I was bringing Chipotle to the ballpark so many times, like in every city, that it was like when September came, when October came and the season was over, I was like, I don't even want to eat this until like spring training. But yeah, I think it's got to be like Citi Field's actually really good. Yankee Stadium's got some good media dining. So the two New York ballparks are really good. Philly's really good. Miami's not bad. They've got, I mean, it's not always like great, but I think they've got some options. Trying to think, yeah, in the division now, like branching out. Yeah, Chicago wasn't good. The Cubs wasn't good. White Sox was Pittsburgh's not bad. Yeah, I like Pittsburgh. But yeah, I think I know like Oracle in San Francisco is one people always talk about. Yeah, I think Boston's cool too, because I did Chipotle in Boston a couple times because you can just walk out and it's like a couple blocks down the street there. Yeah, so that was cool. I think like versatility matters to me more than anything. Yeah, and just finding something I can eat, or I'll go to like a Trader Joe's before and get my own stuff if I feel like it. Yeah, you got to balance it out because you can't eat ballpark food all the time. I mean, I guess you could, but I don't want to, sit around and wait for the consequences.
Interesting. Oh, we like appreciate the insight. This is the stuff that we really enjoy the most here.
Right.
Before we discuss a little bit about the Mets, wanted to ask you what your I'm right moment was in your life or your career. So by that, what I mean is you were told, hey, Justin, you have to do this way. This is the only way to do it. And you said, I don't think so. I'm going to do it my way. And ultimately, you'll see why I'm right.
Oh, that's good. So I think I'm like a keyboard like pecker, like hunter. Like I'll just like I only type with like a few of my fingers. I don't type with like all 10 of them. And I remember like I had these typing classes. Is that what you even call them? Like typing classes in computer class, like where you had to do like the little things would light up, right? And you had to like do them in like the amount of time, and you had to get certain words per minute. And like I could do it just to pass that. Like I remember just like learning that just for like the hell of it. I was like, shit, I guess I just gotta pass this. But then I like returned to my old ways. So I only use like a few of my fingers, and it's always worked for me. And and I can do it, fast. I know, I guess the other way is like faster if somebody's good like that. But for me, I've always just done it this way, and it's just always worked, and I don't have to think about it. And it's like, yeah, I know I'm not the only one who does that either. Yeah, because I've noticed other people doing that, but which is funny. But I remember everybody used to make me feel like I was crazy. They're like, "Oh, you do it so much faster if you did this," and I was like, "Just lay off." And so I feel like the time that other people spend thinking of their thoughts and ideas, because those thoughts don't easily flow, I spent like actually typing those thoughts out, because for me, I was always like a writer, so they did flow. And so for me, I was like, that was like a moment where I was like, I'm gonna, like in 6th grade, 7th grade, 5th grade, all that stuff, when they were like making us set up, all 10 fingers and the thing from like L to A, whatever the setup was. And like, they were like, look, you can like move them. And I was like, I don't care. Like, I just want to do it my way. And that's one that I'll never change, because I just don't like doing it like that. So I'm not like somebody who only uses like one finger on each hand, but like I don't use like my 10 fingers. Like I like to, I feel like there's more precision to do it my way.
There you go. It's worked out for you so far. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
All right. So real quick on the Mets here, and then we'll let you go.
Mhm.
As of this recording, November 2nd, we are less than a month away from the CBA expiring. The Mets have no manager and no general manager or baseball president of operations. So if you had to handicap this, do they even hire anybody this month, or do they wait well into the end of the year and kind of see what plays out? Because I would think there's probably not going to be much movement here in the free agency market until after the CBA is done.
Right. Yeah. No, yeah, it's a good question. I think, honestly, I only thought they would wait into the period if they were going to like wait out to see if Zach Scott's trial, like based on the evidence the prosecution had, like if they were going to wait to see that evidence to see if it was like as bad as initially reported or like that. And then, they could decide, okay, like we'll bring this guy back or whatever. So that's the only scenario in which I thought they would wait. I mean, I guess because of the timing, they could still wait. Like if it doesn't work out, because I mean they've spent a month looking for one. Like I remember that Tuesday after the offseason was when I reported, when I had to do the Epstein thing. Like so that was like right after the season. So it's been a month. And so at this point, anything's possible, but I feel like they have to hire somebody this month just because like I mean, I feel like they want to get some direction going, be able to get a jump on the manager, stuff, and filling out like the coaching staff, which is also very big, and then filling out like player development, things they want to do there, like making hires throughout the organization that they're still hiring they want to do, based on what I've heard. And so like all of that gets pushed back if you're not, if you don't hire if you're not, you
Right.
don't have those top guys hired. And so like I feel like they've got to like hire somebody, a man or a woman this month, because I just don't. Yeah, I think it's kind of risky to wait until after, like in the middle of till kind of wait it out. I think that's really risky, especially because you run the risk of like other teams, like either
Right.
poaching your own guys or like the pool of candidates for different positions you want below the front office, like kind of being depleted.
Do you think that any of the hesitation here, most of it's people not getting permission, but anything, because we see things online, some chirps that a lot of people are concerned because of the fact that Sandy Allison's son, Bryn, is the assistant GM and you kind of have to inherit him. Do you think there's anything there at all, or anybody maybe concerned about, maybe Sandy's involved too much? That could be anything there.
No, I don't think so. I think that could be like Sandy's involvement. I don't think Bryn is a consideration as much. I think Sandy's involvement could be seen by some as like these people want to report to the owner. They don't want to report to like Sandy or have to
Right.
work like in some people don't. So I guess, but it's a thing where it's like I think it's pretty well understood around the industry that in a job like Sandy's presence, it theoretically like I guess it could be an issue. But I've heard that people around the industry really respect Sandy. So he's well respected, and I know there's a common there's just a common understanding that he's going to step over to the business side. What that means, I don't know, but he's made it very clear that um at least publicly that he doesn't want to make the daily, baseball operations moves and handle those, and that he's willing to only be involved as much as the president of baseball operations would want him to be involved. They didn't even like last year. Like Zach Scott was doing the day-to-day, the daily duties, like Sandy delegated all that to him, and got out of the way, with a fair amount. But I think that could be certainly like a consideration for people. But I do think that's a little bit overblown because I've heard like that Sandy's like just really respected among his peers. So I do think that's a little bit overblown. But I think that, hey, yeah, if you're somebody looking at the job from the outside looking in, even if you have an assurance that this guy's going to step to the business side, you still want to be the only guy. Like not every team has like a team president. So I just feel like that certainly could be, that's something that could be detrimental to a search like that.
Yeah, who knows? In hindsight, if they knew what they knew now, maybe they would have kept Brody and Omar for a year and see how things played out. But we'll say, do you think there's any shot they hire a manager before they hire a front office executive?
I don't think so. And I guess I could be wrong because these things change so quickly, like on a whim. But I don't think so. My gut feeling, because, and I'll tell you why. Because they were only competing with one team for the manager pool. Because I mean, you count the Cardinals, what they were going to hire from within, and they did.
Mhm.
But because now San Diego got Bob Melvin, and because it was another manager, and so like it's just them in Oakland. Like they I mean, there's not, if there were 6 teams hiring for managers, like, yeah, you'd need to get a move on. But now, like, your candidate pool is going to be pretty much your candidate pool. And it's not really like a make or break situation there. So I would have to think that they would hire somebody up top first, because the allure for a new executive is like that they get to hire their own people. And it's not worth taking that away from somebody in a year in which you're not competing with like 5 other teams for these managerial candidates.
So, there's probably a wide spectrum of people maybe they're considering, but maybe they're not reaching out. Like you said, they're waiting for a front office executive. But, the names we're hearing, do you think there's smoke or there's fire? We hear some things about maybe Buck Showalter, maybe bring Carlos Beltran back for his debut, Joe McEwing, Bob Guerin, who used to be the bench coach. But are those the names you're hearing, or is the list maybe so long right now and we'll just have to wait and see who's in the front office before they target somebody?
Yeah, I think it's a wait and see sort of situation because you don't know. Like, I know the direction of the organization in terms of like them wanting to be more data driven to a point, not wanting to be so binary to one side or the other, but wanting to blend of both. But they're definitely getting to be more forward thinking because I think a lot of people blame the analytics guys, but I think a lot of people need to understand that like Steve Cohen is a very analytical guy in terms of like literally his business, like finance,
Right.
is solely based on algorithms and then making decisions based on that stuff. And so I think, it's tough to know. Like I think Buck Showalter was like a name I mentioned, and then like Ron Washington as well. I think an interesting one is Brad Ausmus, like a guy who theoretically could command a clubhouse, but he's also got managerial experience. I mean, he's a former player, obviously. But yeah, I think in terms of like any concrete, like, what I'm hearing, I think that's like for, once they hire somebody, that stuff's going to be a little more concrete. Yeah, because I don't think there's been much movement there yet.
Yeah. All right. Last question for me. I got to bring up the incident. Here's Jeff McNeil specifically for this. We know it's a bunch of nonsense that Lindor was spewing about a raccoon member, but to me, listening to you guys ask them questions, I was getting frustrated because I felt like they were trying to insult you and all your colleagues' intelligence. I want to know, did you guys feel angry about that after? Did you speak with your fellow beat reporters after and be like, what the heck was just that? Because you probably knew once he said that nonsense that was going to be a huge story. But to me, I just felt like it was a total slap in the face to the fan base, but more specifically to you and all your colleagues in the room there or in the virtual Zoom there who were asking questions.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that because I think like Zach Scott the next day said like that his view from being in the Boston front office is that people in the Northeast would just rather have your honesty than your BS. And I think that's like really true. But you'd be surprised. Like a lot of people on Mets Twitter were just like, oh, see, this is why the beat reporters suck. Like the media takes everything too seriously. They can't take a joke. But it's like, I would urge people to, it's like, these are people who, like we always hear, like they want to know everything about the team. And then when the beat reporters try to find out everything about the team, when it's very clear that the $341 million shortstop and the second baseman fought, and the beat reporters try to figure that out, then people are like, oh, take a joke. So it's kind of like a weird, like moving the goalpost. But yeah, I remember like, because you do it in a post-game Zoom setting, like you're sitting next to like everybody who was also asking questions. So I remember there was a lot of like looking back and forth, like, did these, like you're shaking your head at people, like, is this actually going on? Like these people just say that. And like, yeah, I remember like a couple people asked a couple pointing questions and like tried to follow up, and they were sticking to their stories. So it was like we were just all like kind of laughing because you're muted, like
right.
Obviously, if you're not the one asking the question. So we all just kind of laughing and talking like this is just like absolutely ridiculous that we're having to deal with this. That are
first chapter in Mike Puma's next book, right there.
Right. Like the raccoon stuff. I was like, and it's not even like you're trying to. The funny thing is, like, as beat reporters, you're not even like trying to hold anybody accountable. Like, oh, you should never. Like, I think everybody understands, or at least I do. Like, growing up playing sports, it's like those things happen, like fights, things like that. But it's like if you just address them and move on, it's less of a story than if you just like act like something awful happened because you're like willing to cover it up with some stupid thing. And I feel like, yeah, this isn't like I can take a joke. I mean, I thought it was funny. Like at the end of the day, like. It's just not that serious. Like, who cares? Whatever. But it's like I thought at the time, like we were all laughing to each other. Like, it's just like super weird that, like, yeah, that I mean, I didn't expect that to happen. Especially after a game like that. I mean, that was like the Mazika game. I think the first fielder's choice, like walk-off fielder's choice, and so I think, yeah, it was just crazy. But it's funny because there's a sector of the fan base that thinks the beat reporters were taking it too seriously. And there's a sector that like says what you just said, like, well, it's a slap in the face to fans, like, and the reporters, because it's like, you're obviously lying. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, there were a few situations like that this year. I just think honesty is the best policy. No, we don't need to know everything that goes on. But I mean, if like something very clearly happened, I mean, I think you look worse like trying to cover it up in a stupid way, but that's just, I mean, I don't take it's like not that serious, so I don't really even like care. Like I wasn't personally offended as a reporter is what I'm trying to say. It was just like I thought it was just more stupid than anything.
I think the Northeast point is pretty spot on, and spoken like a true person from California, have that more laid back style. No surprise there. You mentioned poaching before, and you mentioned Bob Melvin. So before we let you go, I wanted to ask your opinion here on the Padres, who took a really nice step forward despite the COVID 2020 season. Definitely were more of a disappointment taking a step back this season. Obviously, nobody could have foreseen what happened with that San Francisco Giants season. I don't think anybody expected them setting a franchise record for wins during the regular season. But what is your opinion on the Padres organization going from Jace Tingler to Bob Melvin? And since you have experience now working on both coasts, there's an interesting dynamic here because you have to stay up late here on the East Coast to watch stuff on the West Coast. There's a 3-hour difference. However, when you're on the West Coast, everything that's on the East Coast is 3 hours earlier, right? So a 7 o'clock Yankees or Mets game here would go on 4 o'clock there. So when that 7 o'clock stuff, when that 7 o'clock stuff here is over, it's still only 7 o'clock there. You feel like you have your whole night, right? So now that you've had the experience of doing both, which one would you prefer?
Okay, I'll start with the Padres part of the question. So I think, I mean, really, really nice step forward with Bob Melvin. I mean, I think that's as well as it could have worked out for them. I mean, I think that's a guy who's one of the game's best managers, revered as that. I think they really need a guy who could command the clubhouse a little more, which is like there were multiple reports, well-reported stories, thoroughly reported stories about how Jace Tingler had lost the clubhouse, and not so much that guys didn't like him, but just that he wasn't ready to command personalities like that. I think they've got a good team. 2022 is a make or break year because I think that's when you start to learn. Like ownership has dedicated the resources from Fernando Tatis Jr. to Manny Machado, even back to Eric Hosmer, to Yu Darvish, to Blake Snell. 2022 is a make or break year because you're going to see if that is, if this is a core that could win a title or if there needs to be something rearranged, something added, especially because AJ Preller going back to, it's going to be 7 years now, has really had time to execute this rebuild. They've done it very well, but I think there are hitches that they're going to need to figure out. I do think Bob Melvin's the best step, though. They needed somebody with experience, but I don't think they needed somebody who was 80 years old, with experience. I think they still needed somebody equipped to handle the modern day game. And I mean, Bob Melvin did it, in an organization that was always strapped for cash. And so I think it's going to be funny for him because he's probably going to find it might be a lot easier in some respects because of the talent there and because, the natural talent there and the willingness to spend. So yeah, it's interesting. And I know fans are passionate here, but back there, I know everybody's really pissed off about the way 2021 ended because, I mean, I know nobody could have foreseen the Giants doing what they did, but I just think like everybody expected a lot more from the Padres, especially with the start they had. And it was just, I think for San Diego fans, it was demoralizing to see them just like roll over in that second half a lot of times, not show much fight. So yeah, so it's a make or break year next year, in my opinion. But yeah, so then I think about the second question a lot because I used to say West Coast. Like I used to say West Coast, but then now that I think about it, it's like, like now I have time on a Saturday to like work out and do some stuff. And then I can like plop down for the college football slate or on a Sunday, like before the 1 p.m. games or something like that. That stuff starts at like the Big Ten game, like Michigan, Ohio State or something on the West Coast starts at 9 a.m.
Right, or like 10 a.m. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you're a Ohio State fan?
No. I'm just saying it. I know in general, it's like it's either 9 or 10 a.m. You got to wake up super early, and it's the same thing for an NFL Sunday. You got to be up at 10 a.m.
Right, exactly. So whether you go to church on a Sunday, whether you go get donuts, whatever it is, like you've got to be back by like if you get a late start to your day, you've missed 3/4 of the game. And so I think, okay, yes, like, do I want to watch Warriors Clippers until 2 a.m. here? Like not particularly, like not all the time. Like do I want to watch a World Series game that ends at 1 a.m.? Like, yeah, that's not optimal, but it's like it's like I still think the benefits. I look at my schedule now, and I just like by 5 p.m. I'm not ready to sit down yet. Like I'm not done with my day to sit down and watch sports. And I think that's the part that I don't know if I could adjust to if I moved back like ever, is that like you like these 7 games, they start at 4 there. Like they start, so it's like the primetime college football game starts at like 4:30 or something like that. It's over by like 8. And so then you have to fill your time the rest of the night doing other stuff, which like I can do, but and that part is nice that you still have time in your night after watching all the sports to like do something or hang out with people, whatever it may be. But man, I don't know if it takes away, like I don't know if that's better than like the time we get here before the slate starts, because I feel like you just miss so much on the West Coast. Like if you're not up by 9 a.m. on a Saturday, like you miss almost
How
like the
about
whole
if your West Coast team's playing in London on Sunday, up at 6 a.m. Got to
Oh
watch
my
some football.
God.
Brutal.
Oh, it's like I know, like you would. Those are like the funniest games because you would wake up at like a respectable hour, like 9:30 or 9 or something, 10 in high school, and then like the London game would already be over, which is just like ridiculous to think about. But I don't even like, yeah, no. Now here it's like 9:30, right? Yeah, so it's yeah, that's a little more doable. But I always feel like where it really gets me is when they do playoff games at like 8:30 here, like 8:09, Major League Baseball playoff games, or like how TNT, like the second game of that is like 10:15. It doesn't really even get started till like 10:20, 10:30, and it's like you're up watching basketball until like 1 or 2, and it's just like, which is worth it sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I think oh God, which I would prefer. It's so hard. I think East Coast. I mean, maybe that's just the way. I used to prefer West Coast. I used to maybe West Coast. I don't know. I mean, but I just think there's perks to both. It's hard to cite one that I prefer. I probably would have told you West Coast until like the last year, but I think now I just kind of got used to it more. And I like how it feels like there's sports all day, because I like to do things earlier in my day than later, and so I think that caters better to here.
Totally fair. Justin, thanks for joining us. Finally had you on. We really appreciate it. I'm a Yankees fan. I didn't want to tell you that until the end, but I do end up going to a token Mets game or two every year. I went earlier this year with Nick, and ironically enough, we went to a Braves Mets game, and John McGill won that game. The Mets won that game 2-1. It was the game where Michael Conforto made the throw from right field to home plate, which is one of the best plays I've seen all season by any team. Nobody expected that Braves team to be up 3-2 in the World Series as of tonight. So, but hopefully when Nick brings me out to a Mets game next year, him and I can reach out to you, we can hang out. Again, this was so much fun. Thank you for doing this. What we do is we give our guests the last words here. So if there's anything else you would like to share or promote, feel free, go right ahead. Really appreciate you on having, and really enjoyed this.
Oh, yeah. No, I really appreciate it. Yeah, I don't think I have really anything. Yeah, just northjersey.com, the record, subscribe. My Twitter is Justin C. Toscano. I think my Instagram is like Justin Toscano Writes. That's my like work one. So yeah, I think that's about it for me. But yeah, I don't think I have any final words. Looking forward to, being with you guys again someday.
Absolutely. And like Joe said, next time we're at Citi Field or Citizens Bank, we went there, unfortunately, this summer.
Oh, man.
Contact you.
Sweet.
Hopefully the Mets won't be getting swept again in Philly like we were when we went to the game.
Seriously. Yeah. No, thanks for having me on, guys.
Absolutely. All right. So that's going to do it here for this episode of You Know I'm Right for our very special guest, Justin Toscano, and my co-host, Joe Calabrese. I am Nick Durst, and this has been You Know I'm Right.